I never thought I'd find myself as the main character in a story like this. If someone had told me that just 3 weeks before my wedding, I would discover that my fiancée was plotting to steal all my assets with her ex-boyfriend, I would have laughed. But this isn't some fictional tale. This is real life. This is my life. That evening, I came home after a long day at the office. It was lightly raining, and the smell of wet asphalt mixed with the aroma of food from nearby restaurants. It felt familiar, almost comforting. I opened the door to the house Autumn and I had just bought 3 months ago, mostly thanks to the savings I had put away over the past 8 years. She was in the bathroom, shower running, leaving her phone on the kitchen counter. Nothing unusual about that. We'd been living together for 2 years. I'm not the type of guy to snoop or check my partner's phone. But that night, something compelled me. The screen lit up with a message from someone named Elijah. "After the wedding, we'll finally be free, my love." I wasn't sure if I had misread it, but my hands were shaking. I unlocked her phone, and from that moment, my life started to shatter with every message I read. For the last 4 months, Autumn, my fiancée, the woman I was about to spend the rest of my life with, had been secretly texting Elijah, her ex from college, whom she always insisted was just a friend. But those conversations weren't just a few innocent flirtations. They were a plan, a carefully crafted plan to take everything I had. "Just get through the wedding, then his name will be on the house, and we can start moving forward," she texted. "What about the prenup?" Elijah asked. "My lawyer found a loophole," Autumn replied. "I'll use it to turn things around. He won't know anything until it's all done." I sat there numb. For nearly an hour, I read every message, every detail. From scheduling their meetings after the wedding, to Autumn mocking me for thinking I was the perfect man while she manipulated me. I remember the moment Autumn walked out of the bathroom, towel drying her hair, smiling and asking if I'd ordered Thai food yet. I handed the phone back to her and lied, saying the app had crashed, that I'd order it on my laptop. Sitting there eating dinner with her that night, the woman who was excitedly talking about wedding decorations while I knew she was just waiting for my name to be on the deed so she could make her move, there are no words to describe it. I wanted to flip the table, scream at her, but I didn't, because I had decided I wouldn't just call off the wedding. No, Autumn deserved a lesson she would never forget. The next morning I called Heath, my best friend from college, who works in tech. He came over the same day, and when I showed him Autumn's phone, he read through a few messages and his face went pale. "Bro, you've been played." Heath helped me back up all the messages, images, audio recordings, and secret transactions Autumn had sent Elijah. He even showed me how to erase any traces and hide all digital activity. I created a special folder, simply titled, "The Envelope." At that point, I wasn't exactly sure what I would do on the wedding day. But I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't going to go as Autumn thought. I called my younger brother, Alan, a law intern and someone I trusted completely. I told him everything, and we started planning. A meticulous and entirely legal plan. This wasn't just about exposing Autumn. It was about protecting myself from financial damage, from the house to the prenup. That afternoon, when Autumn hugged me from behind and whispered, "In 3 weeks, I'll be Mrs. Anderson," I just smiled and kissed her on the forehead. But in my mind, I already pictured her. In her white wedding dress, standing in front of everyone, opening the envelope, and realizing that every lie she had spun was now laid bare. 3 days after that fateful moment, when I read Autumn's messages to Elijah, I still couldn't get a full night's sleep. Every night lying next to her, it felt like I was playing the lead role in a tragedy with only one audience, me. She slept soundly, breathing evenly, one arm around me, the other still wearing the engagement ring I had picked out with all my love. And I lay there counting every breath of the woman who was plotting to steal everything I'd worked for over the past decade. I sat silently, watching the screen display each message like a knife slashing at my chest. Once the wedding happens, his name will be on the deed. Then it's our turn. He blindly trusts me. Once we start cashing in, it's over. My lawyer found a loophole in the prenup. We'll still get half the company if we divorce at the right time. I swallowed my anger, because now I wasn't the love-struck groom anymore. I was a man betrayed, and I was planning the most unforgettable unmasking of her life. Alan helped me go through the entire house purchase contract, the prenup terms, the mortgage papers, and related assets. Thankfully, or perhaps out of caution, I still had my name on most of the assets, and the refinancing contract hadn't been finalized. The plan Autumn and Elijah had discussed was still on paper, and I wasn't going to let it become reality. I transferred most of my bank accounts to another bank she didn't know about, leaving just a small amount to avoid suspicion. As for the wedding bills, I started going over the vendors who could refund part of the payments if there were issues. Not much, but at least I wouldn't lose everything. The climax came that night when we sat together, handwriting each guest's name on 178 wedding invitations. Autumn smiled, complained about her sore hand, then whispered, "Just 3 more weeks and I'll be Mrs. Anderson. Forever." I looked at her, trying not to let the shiver run down my spine. Her words sounded like the mocking laugh of someone playing the role a bit too well. The plan was laid out meticulously. Goal 1. Gather all the evidence of betrayal. Texts, photos, clips, and voice recordings. Goal 2. Ensure no financial liability after the wedding is called off. Goal 3. Reveal the entire truth at the wedding, with enough witnesses to see her true face exposed. Alan prepared the truth envelope, a thick 26-page file filled with evidence of the relationship between Autumn and Elijah, manipulative messages, photos from the Las Vegas bachelorette trip with strange men, and a recording of her saying I wasn't attractive, but knew how to make money and was easy to control. This envelope would be handed to her, right at the altar, and I wasn't alone. Bonnie, Autumn's sister, had suspected something was wrong for months. I told her everything, showed her some of the evidence. Bonnie was shocked, but she didn't defend her sister. She said, if it's true, she deserves the consequences. 3 days before the wedding, I pretended to drop my phone and acted concerned when Autumn picked it up. She asked, "What's wrong?" I smiled lightly and said, "It's just work stuff, a little sensitive." In reality, I had just not erased a few screenshot messages. Living in a never-ending drama made me feel like I was losing my mind, but I had to keep the act up until the very end. Last night at the rehearsal dinner, both families were there. Autumn was all smiles. Her mom made a speech about a wonderful new chapter for her daughter. I gripped my hand so tightly I could barely feel it anymore. It was enough. I left the party early, citing work. But really I went to Heath's house, to sleep there the night before. Not because I believed in superstition about not seeing the bride before the big day, but because I couldn't bear to keep up the act for one more night. When I left, Autumn kissed my cheek and whispered, "Tomorrow will be the beginning of forever." She had no idea. Tomorrow would be the end for her. That morning began in a strange, unsettling silence. I woke up on the couch at Heath's place after a night of tossing and turning, unable to sleep. The room was bathed in the soft yellow light of the night lamp, and the ticking of the clock seemed louder than usual. I saw my suit, freshly pressed, hanging on the door, my polished shoes neatly placed under the chair, the ring box resting on the table by the armrest. Everything was ready for a big day, but not a wedding day. It was the day the raw truth would be exposed. I checked my phone, nothing surprising. 27 messages from Autumn. The same words repeated with increasing frequency. "Where are you, my love? I'm starting to worry. We need to talk. Please don't do anything rash." I didn't respond, not because I didn't think she deserved a reply, but because each message only reinforced my reason for doing what I was about to do. Heath walked into the room with 2 cups of coffee. He didn't say anything, just placed one in front of me and gave my shoulder a light pat. We didn't need to speak. Everything was ready. That feeling evaporated. All that was left was cold indifference. Alan was waiting in the hallway behind the venue with a thick envelope tucked inside his suit jacket. He gave me a subtle nod when he saw me. No one else knew what was happening except for Heath and Alan. The groomsmen were joking around, completely unaware that behind my glasses, a storm was quietly brewing. At 2:50 p.m., the guests began settling into their seats. I saw Elijah, Autumn's ex, sneak in through the side entrance. Heath followed behind, quietly pointing him out to me. That guy had the audacity to show up, hoping to witness me being taken down. Or at least that's what he and Autumn had planned. I smiled. He had no idea that it was he who was about to be brought to light. At 3 p.m., when the bride appeared, the music played, and everyone stood up. Autumn stepped out, looking every bit the part in a dazzling wedding dress worth nearly $8,000. She smiled, and the smile that once made me fall for her. But now as I looked into her eyes, I didn't see love. I saw someone acting so well that she believed the role was real. Her father led her to me, handing her over with a proud look in his eyes. If he knew what I knew, maybe he wouldn't be standing here today. We turned to face the officiant, my cousin. He began with a short speech about love and commitment. I caught a few words like loyalty, facing challenges together, and forever. I almost laughed. Forever? She hadn't even made it through the honeymoon before planning to run off with someone else. And then, the moment I had been waiting for. Before we continue with the vows, the groom has something to share. I took a step forward, signaling to Alan. He pulled the envelope from his jacket and handed it to the officiant, the one I had briefed beforehand. Autumn furrowed her brow, looking at me with confusion. "What's going on?" she asked. I didn't respond. I just nodded, and she took the envelope. Starting with the first page, I watched her face go from rosy to ghostly pale. Whispers began to ripple through the rows of seats. The second page, a screenshot of text with Elijah. The third page, copies of secret Venmo transactions. The fourth, a recording of her saying, "I've never been attracted to him, but he's a good provider." She looked up at me, her lips trembling like she wanted to say something. But I already had the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steadier than ever. "I apologize for interrupting this joyous occasion, but unfortunately, this wedding will not be happening." The murmurs grew louder. I raised my hand. "The bride, the woman I've loved for 4 years, has been plotting to marry me just to get her name on the property deed, exploiting loopholes in our prenup, and still carrying on with her ex. I have the proof in my hands, and it's all in that envelope." I looked at Elijah. He had his head down. Autumn was crying uncontrollably, mascara smeared down her face. "I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm doing it for the truth, and I can't enter a marriage built on lies." Then I lowered my head, placed the wedding ring on the altar, and walked away, as the room fell into an eerie silence. 3:20 p.m. Outside the hall, I could hear my shoes echoing on the stone floor. I stepped out through the grand doors of the wedding venue, the late afternoon sun shining on my face. I could hear sobs behind me, Autumn's father shouting, and the guests whispering like something out of a 90s drama. Heath and Alan were waiting with the car. I got in, slammed the door shut, and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I felt relief. The wedding hall doors closed behind me, marking the end of a chapter in my life filled with lies. I sat in Heath's car, watching through the window as the grand estate slowly faded into the distance. My heart was still racing, not out of fear, but because the adrenaline hadn't worn off yet. I had just walked away from a marriage disaster before it could happen, and I survived. Heath, my closest friend and the loyal accomplice in this entire plan, glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "You good?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. I nodded. I don't know if I'd call it good, but I still feel lucky. By 4:30 p.m., news spread like wildfire. Less than an hour later, I started seeing the first short clips from the wedding popping up on Instagram and TikTok. One video showed Autumn shaking as she opened the envelope. Another caught me clearly calling out the manipulation plan, followed by unmistakable gasps from the guests. Hashtags like "Chukcha runaway groom," "Chukcha wedding expose," and "Chukcha envelope of doom" started trending. You could call it ruthless, but I called it justice. Justice for 4 years of love being exploited. Justice for the more than $200,000 drained into a wedding that the other side never intended to genuinely follow through with. At 6 p.m., my phone blew up with messages. Autumn, from her main number, her secondary number, even her personal email. She started with pleading messages. "I'm sorry, I lost my mind." Then switched to anger. "You humiliated me in front of my whole family," and ended with threats. "I'm suing you for emotional distress." I didn't respond to any of it, but I didn't block her either, because everything she sent would be evidence for my lawyer. Every single word. By 9 p.m., While Heath, Alan, and I were going over the videos, texts, and receipts we'd gathered over the last 2 weeks, a message came in from an unknown number. I know I was wrong too, but I had no idea she was going to take it this far. It was Elijah. Honestly, I had been expecting that name to show up in the messages section long before the wedding was called off. He continued, I thought she just wanted to spice things up. I didn't know she was exploiting you financially. I have a girlfriend. Everything got out of hand. I scoffed. Oh, so now you're the victim? Heath tilted his head and looked at me. You gonna respond? I shook my head. Let him stew in the hole he dug for himself. The next morning I received a surprising call from Bonnie. Autumn had a younger sister named Bonnie. I used to think she was a bit eccentric, but at least she always treated me decently. She called at 10 a.m. Do you have a few minutes? Her voice was calm but clear. I agreed to meet. We picked a small coffee shop south of the city. She was already there when I arrived, and the first thing she did was place a USB on the table. I think you should have this. I frowned. Autumn's laptop wasn't locked. When I got home last night, she was sobbing in the bathroom. I checked, and I found more than I expected. That afternoon was when the consequences started hitting Autumn. She was fired from her company. One of the investors saw the clip circulating online, recognized her as the head of marketing, and immediately demanded her contract be terminated due to the negative impact on the company's image. Her mom called my mom, crying hysterically, saying that the girl is possessed and that they never knew their daughter could be so manipulative and ruthless. Half of her guests unfriended her. Most of them were my friends or mutual friends, but I knew at least 3 of Autumn's close friends posted online saying they couldn't support such behavior. As for me, I started cleaning up the pieces. I met with a lawyer the next morning to remove Autumn's name from all the paperwork for the house purchase. Luckily, we hadn't completed the transfer process yet, and with the evidence I provided, keeping the house wasn't legally difficult. I also canceled all the remaining wedding contracts. Some expenses were non-refundable, but most, thanks to help from my lawyer and the force majeure clauses. I only lost about 40% of the total deposit. A big amount, but still better than being drained dry to the last penny. That night, I was alone in the house that was meant for 2. I walked into the living room, where the wedding seating chart was still pinned up, with post-its with guest names stuck all around. In silence, I quietly pulled each one down and threw them in the trash. Every name was a memory, but not mine anymore. I didn't need those illusions anymore. After the reveal at the wedding, I didn't walk into a happy ending. It was more of a beginning, with heaps of wreckage. Instead of the honeymoon in Bali as originally planned, I spent the next week in the house that was bought to build a home. But now it was just a temporary refuge in my life that had just shattered. There was no wedding dress, no 7-tiered cake, no exchange wedding rings, no tearful, happy glances. Just the heavy sound of the curtains being drawn open in the morning and the growling of the coffee maker in the empty kitchen. But strangely, I felt more at peace than I ever expected. The first morning after the wedding without a bride, I woke up with a strange feeling. Relief. No more worrying about exposed messages, no more glances of betrayal, no more acting every morning when she asked, "What kind of coffee do you want today?" I brewed coffee for myself, and for the first time, I knew that at least today, this cup of coffee wasn't tainted by betrayal. Messages from Autumn kept coming in from pleading, "Can we talk? Just one last time," to anger, "You'll pay for humiliating me like this." I stayed silent, and in that silence I heard myself clearer than ever before. A week later, I began cleaning up the house. The pictures that once hung side by side came down, replaced with photos I took on my trips, memories that were my own. I didn't need to erase every memory of Autumn. I just needed to know that they no longer represented anything about my present. I also scheduled a session with a counselor, not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to admit I needed help understanding what had happened to me after that emotional and financial betrayal. And then, one peaceful night, I sat on the back porch with a glass of whiskey, watching the yellow lights from the neighboring houses. For the first time in months, I felt nothing but peace. No warning messages, no hidden twist in a smile. Just me, with myself. What do you think about this story? If my story resonates with you, or if you've ever gone through something similar, feel free to leave a comment below so we can share and talk more. Don't forget to hit like and share this video so more people can realize that sometimes a betrayal isn't the end, but a question mark to begin again. And if you love true, dramatic, and deeply human stories like this, hit follow so you won't miss any future stories. Thank you for listening to my story. I look forward to seeing you in the next ones.